Welcome to Market Matters. I'm Nadia, Hassan, together with Sulhi, Azman. You join us on this very rainy kind of Monday. It's been an interesting weekend, isn't it, Sulhi? Because the budget came out on Friday. Adele's new song came out on Friday, which made me really very happy. Go listen to it. But in general, I think the enthusiasm has not kind of carried over.
Well, China has done it again, to counter the slowing economy, has introduced drastic measures to boost the economy. And what was it that they did? They cut the interest rate, and they also reduced the banking ratio, reserve requirement ratio.
Fourth time this year. It's very big. Okay, I think you typed it out as Z economics because, we're talking about Abenomics, right? So today is actually a very big day for China. But just to bring it back to the local market, FBM KLCI actually closed about 4 points lower to 1,706 and some spare change. Losers have outperformed the gainers. This is something that's happened after we've had a very long few days of green. I think the budget failed to excite, and we bucked the trend because regionally people were actually were really doing well because today is China's plenum.
Yeah, this is the very largest political gathering where they're going to convene for 4 days and talk about the policy direction for the next 13 years and so on. And today, in the local market today...
Not the next 13 years, it's for the 13th plan.
13th plan, sorry.
Yeah, which is about 5 years. It'll begin in 2016. So people are going to be watching for any indication whether or not... It's one of those where you really read between the lines. Is he smiling? Is he not? Do we trust the numbers? It's very tough.
Yeah, I think everyone is going to watch the Chinese President Xi Jinping and also the Premier Li Keqiang, and how are they going to really provide stimulus for the slumping and cooling economy in China.
Yeah, so that is going to be a big thing to look out for in the next thing. There's also a massive data dump from Japan. They'll have a lot of production industrial output. As you can see, the Nikkei, I think, also reacted to that. They slipped back into recession in the third quarter. But for me, right, the big thing was they actually had an IPO. They're going to have the biggest IPO, raising something ludicrous like $11.9 billion US for Japan Post, the biggest one since Alibaba. It's going to be a very, very big thing. I mean, what else did while we wrap up? It's like, what did MIDF research say?
Well, the MIDF research say that the foreign investors continue to be the net buyers in the local equity market. Buying some 234 million ringgit on Friday. It was the largest in the fifth day. But anyway, on the regional market, just before we wrap up, Nikkei 225 closed higher by 121.82 points at some 18,000 some spare change, and Shanghai closed higher by 17 points at 3,429 points.
All right, thanks for that. So we're moving on to our hot stock of the day. It's a name that we actually don't really get into. Utusan Melayu and Bhd, up 25% to 65 cents. And when I look at this song, when I look at this stock, I have Bonnie Tyler's I Need a Hero playing in my head, because the reason why they actually went up was that somebody went in, an institutional buyer actually went in, bought 100,000 shares. It's not exactly market moving, but the shares in general, as you can see by the share price, have been on a slightly yo-yo trend, and it's not been identified who exactly is. But of course, rumor is rife, right?
Yeah, rumor is rife. I mean, if you look at the Utusan, for instance, right, about 49% is owned by UMNO, and another 14% is owned by a proxy of Tan Sri Said Mokhtar Al-Bukhari via Nilam Serta Sdn Bhd. And I think these institutional buyers, right, some of them speculate it might be value cap or some institutional finance, because the company is going to supply pump in 20 billion ringgit in the local equity market.
But would they buy Utusan?
It's a bit hard,
what's the appeal for Utusan? Of course, the shareholders did say, they did say to the shareholders they're going to give back, they can turn to the back the next 2-3 years. Apparently, property projects, I think that's what they're using to buffer their time. They had a change of CEO, but I can't see what is in it that somebody would, something clear, aside from maybe the printing license?
Well, I think everywhere everyone knows that the printing license. Printing companies is facing headwinds basically in media prima, and even a lot of media companies nowadays. It's a bit hard to sustain.
Us too, right?
Yeah,
of course. Printing costs are going to be the biggest ones that's going to take them in, and of course the biggest thing for printing companies is adex, and there was this huge thing about adex. Apparently, in the second half of the year, it's not going to reach the levels it's going to go see. It said that remaining part of 2015 is going to be soft. A lot of property companies buy ads. We know this. Because of the slowdown, I think they also put the brakes on it a little bit.
Yeah, we can see that across. And if you look at also Utusan, right, they also have quite a number of lawsuits going on there as well, and it's politically connected. I'm not so sure whether the institutional buyers are going to actually like companies which are
they must have had something. They must have had something they liked. And if you look at the losses too, it's not exactly very appealing. They actually deepened their losses for the second quarter. Although and also revenue goes down. I think it's just tough for printing companies. Utusan with the the idea and perception that people have of it, I don't know. I think it's going to be very, very tough for them going forward. But anyway, just to wrap up why it actually matters, of course, the share price closed 25% up today. Of course, it's a penny stock, so it doesn't matter so much, but still 25%. It's still loss-making. It's banking on its property to kind of grow it. We still do not know who the buyer is. I hope he stops playing hide and seek and comes out and we can see who eventually and what is the value that he sees in Utusan. But moving on to our stock with momentum, we have chosen a company called Gadang Holdings Bhd. There was actually a whole bunch of stocks with momentum. If you actually want to see more or read more about them, it's all on the website. But otherwise, they're positive momentum. They closed higher by 4 cents or 2.74%, if you want to be finicky, to 1 ringgit and 50. It had a fallout, didn't it?
Well, the stock has fallen a bit between mid-May and August this year, but it has steadily rebounded by 30%. Now, the stock has one of the lowest PE ratio of 5.84 times. Now, why the stock makes into the momentum is because last Friday it announced that it has backed 375 million contract from Petronas for civil and infrastructure work at Rapid Pengerang. And in the annual report, the group CEO Tan Sri Koon said that the group company has a construction order book of 1.3 billion ringgit,
which is actually good to last them for quite a while. And
earnings visibility is intact.
Yeah, exactly. So if you look at their earnings, I mean, the numbers are actually really, really good. And, they actually also have quite a bit of cash. I was looking at their announcement. They currently have about 116.3 million in cash. That's up from like the 73 they had last year. I've always watched this company. It's an interesting little company in the sense that maybe it's not the big buyer, but it does get the projects. And this Pengerang is the first one this year. And I think that's a buy, even if, well, not to buy the stock, but I think it's good for them, just because it's been so tough this year on projects. Well,
it is, and it is at the same time, they also have another cash, I wouldn't say cash cow, but I think it's cash generating units. Basically, they have property development projects, in GDV in excess of 505 million ringgit. They also have utilities. They actually have power plants, they're buying 60% stakes in PT Mega Ikhwan in Indonesia, which is actually has a 15-year concession. That would, earnings visibility from that alone is actually quite intact.
Yeah, so okay, very, very good. So just to bring it all home, last Friday, Gadang Holdings bagged 375 million contract from Petronas for civil and infra work at Pengerang, Johor. This stock is pegged as net positive momentum by the Edge Research. The stock's actually suffered a bit of 30% drop, but we see gradual recline. Obviously, the algorithm thinks it can actually move a lot further.